Hey everyone, so this is my final presentation for our case study that we did. Um, Mine's just a Zoom presentation, but I have my case study printed out here. I saw that a lot of people do PowerPoints, but honestly, for me, it's just easier to talk about it and have it in front of me, so that's what I'm gonna do. I hope that's okay. But my crisis was about the Bill O'Reilly scandal that happened last year at Fox News. I'm sure all of you have heard about that. It was a really big deal at the time. And it was kind of all over the place. So just a little bit of background that this happened in 2017. And really the biggest problem with this was that it took Fox so long to come up with a decision when a lot of people kind of thought it took them a while to come up with a decision that everyone knew was going to have to be made. So ultimately they ended up firing him about 2.5 to 3 weeks after news broke about a settlement, a $13 million settlement that he had with some people who had made allegations against him that no one knew about the settlement. It was kept pretty under wraps, so that broke. And then a lot of people started coming out with stories and saying that they had told Fox executives that he had been harassing them, and it kind of spiraled from there. And so he ended up taking, a few days later, he ended up taking a vacation, planned vacation, according to Fox. He took a vacation and ended up, he never came back to the network. He was fired a few weeks later after that. And the main problem with this was that, first of all, what I talked about in my case study was that the worst thing that they did, Fox, mainly Fox News, was that they never apologized to the victims, which I thought was a really bad move on their behalf, especially for in terms of like their public relations, like especially after they decided to fire him, because there was so much coming out against him, so many women with similar stories that had happened, years ago and recently, and it was just it was, everyone knew that had happened, and I just thought it was strange that they never apologized to the victims. And it kind of came across that they never even wanted to fire him, which they probably didn't, because at the time he was their highest rated show. So, I don't think they wanted to fire him, but they had to. And I think, even internally, if they didn't want to do that, but they had to, like, at least, it's going to sound kind of bad, but to save face, kind of, like, at least make it seem like you care, kind of, especially when you ended up firing him anyways. Like, I would apologize to the victims because that was an awful thing, and it just kind of came across cold and like they didn't really care, and I think that made it a lot worse for them. I'm sure y'all remember, like, it was all over news everywhere, like, and even before the Me Too stuff started, this was kind of one of the huge things that happened last year. I know the Me Too stuff is a little more recent, it's all, a year isn't that long ago, but it kind of started the whole, no, I wouldn't say started the whole thing, but it was one of the first huge people, really well-known men that this kind of happened to. And this is a little bit before the Me Too movement, but I just think, this kind of got, started a lot of talks about this type of thing. And it was kind of shocking at the time that this revered person by a lot of people had done something like that. And, we've seen a lot of people since then. And I compared it in my case study to what ended up happening with Matt Lauer at NBC on the Today Show. And I think in my recommendations for Fox, I said that they should have fired him a lot sooner. Maybe not immediately, because they didn't, they might have had all the facts, but it had just come out to the public. So I don't think it was necessary that the day of they fired him, because to viewers that might have been like, oh, they didn't even look into it, they don't know the facts, they just fired him. So, I think when he went on that vacation, it was a few days after all the news came out. They probably should have just cut ties at the time, because it went on for so much longer after that, it just came across and rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and they never apologized for any of it. And I just think that came across poorly, no matter what the internal thought process might have been, what they wanted. The fact that it came across that way to the public, especially being in public relations like that, that was bad. That was a bad move on their behalf. And I think since this happened, I kind of touched on the fact that it's happened to a lot of other networks. So I don't think they necessarily can be singled out for it anymore. And I don't think they've really done poorly in ratings because of this. the person who's a lot of people, or the person who has taken over his time slot still does really well, and all of their whole network does well in terms of ratings. So I don't think this really hurt them in the long run, but I think it could have been handled a lot better, and they lost a lot of sponsorship at the time. This happened because it took so long for a decision, so I think they could have avoided a lot of headaches and a lot of bad press and a lot of bad PR had they handled it a little bit differently. So thank y'all for watching. Hope that this wasn't too long. I'm trying to cut back my talking, but hope you'll have a good rest of the semester, and thanks for watching.